For about 5 years now, I've been doing Joe's Dispenza's work for nearly every single day. But 2 years ago, my life was unchanged. Actually, it was a bit worse because I was losing faith in the work, and it wasn't until I made this one subtle shift in my approach, and within weeks, I started to experience synchronicities and opportunities. And I'm telling you this because I don't want you to make the same mistake that I did. Because I wasted so much time thinking that I needed to perfect my technique, meditate for longer periods, or generate stronger emotions. But none of that was actually the real issue. And as you may know in my other videos, I talked about how I love to micromanage, how I used to love micromanaging the universe, how I needed to plan everything down to the last detail. That was exactly what was blocking my manifestation. I was so attached to creating this specific amount of money in this specific time frame that I was actually strangling the very thing that I wanted to create. Now, listen carefully. The money finally showed up when I finally surrendered. Like truly surrendered. Not the fake surrender where you are secretly still checking your email hoping for a miracle. I mean the kind where you completely let go of the needing to know how or when it's going to happen. And look, it felt terrifying at first. It felt like I was letting go of the steering wheel while driving. But then this peace, this sense of peace, was just there. When I released my ego, that part of me that was trying to get good at manifesting, everything changed. Everything changed. Because I stopped treating meditation like a manifestation technique, and I was just sitting in pure presence, just being. And I gave up my timeline completely. And the crazy part is, that's when things started to accelerate beyond what I thought was possible. And I'm going to tell you right now that this is not about being passive, but it's about trusting the intelligence, the field, more than our own limited plans. Letting go of the idea that you are the one making it all happen, and instead becoming the channel through which it all naturally flows. Because despite all my knowledge, my consistent practice, my reality wasn't changing, and I had to face that. I'd have small wins here and there, and a check, small amount of money coming in, but nothing really shifted my reality. And it was frustrating as hell because I'd watch testimonials of people who had been practicing for way less time, having these life-changing breakthroughs, and I'm like, what the hell am I missing? What do they have? Or what are they getting that I'm not? And so the first thing I realized was that I needed to completely surrender my identity. And this was harder than it sounds. Because for years, I had been identifying as someone who struggles with money, a victim, a person that loves to have pity parties for himself. I was doing all the manifestation work, but underneath it all, I still saw myself as that person. It's like trying to manifest abundance while wearing a name tag, "Hi, I'm broke." Like, that is how deeply that identity was ingrained. It was like I was wearing sunglasses, but the lens is like through a perspective of "you're broke." How I thought about money, I'm broke. How I felt about money, I'm broke. I struggle, you know what I mean? How I behaved around money, I was always that guy who always checked the prices before ordering at restaurants. The guy who felt anxiety whenever a bill arrived. That was just my identity. The thing is, I was trying to manifest my way out of this identity without actually surrendering the old identity itself. Because we need to die to our old self before we can truly become someone new. But I had been interpreting that metaphorically, right? I thought I needed to visualize my new self really vividly. And it's not metaphorical. There needs to be a genuine death of the old identity before the new one can be born. You have to be ready to let it go. And so when I stopped trying to improve my money situation and instead surrendered my entire identity, things changed rapidly. I let go of the guy who struggles with money. I let go of all the stories that I had been telling myself about my relationship with money. I let go of the very idea that I had a financial situation that needed to be fixed completely. And let me tell you, it's not about replacing a negative identity with a positive one, but it's about surrendering that identity altogether. And it was about recognizing that I am not defined by my bank account. Either if it's empty or it's full, doesn't identify. And that surrender of identity, that complete letting go of who I thought I was in relation to money, I now find a sense of freedom and a sense of peace. Now, I also had to release my attachment to both the amount and the timeline of the how and when. And this was a game changer. Because I had realized I had been trying to manifest very specific amounts of money by very specific dates, right? I want $10,000 by the end of the month. I need $5,000 by next week. I am manifesting $20,000 by the end of the year. When I did that, there was always a desperation in these intentions, like a subtle or not so subtle feeling that I needed this money by this date, or something bad would happen. Like subconsciously, that's how I felt. Now, this attachment to specific amounts and timelines was creating the frequency of lack and fear. Let's just say that. The exact opposite of my abundance frequency. So funny. And it wasn't until I completely released my attachment to both the amount and when it would happen, when I stopped trying to manifest $20,000 by next Monday, instead opened myself up to abundance in whatever amount and whenever it wanted to show up. That's when things changed. And it wasn't about, let me tell you, like right now, it's not about lowering your standards or giving up your desires, but it's about surrendering the specificness that was actually limiting what the universe could bring me. And so it was about recognizing that my limited mind might be asking for $20,000 when the universe is trying to bring me literally something far more, worth far more. Because I realize that the quantum field responds not to what we want, but it responds to who we are being, our state of being. But I had been interpreting that as needing to be someone who already had $20,000. What I realized is that it's about being someone who is completely open to however abundance wants to express itself, whether that's $20,000 or something entirely different. And so this release of attachment wasn't about not caring. It was about caring so much that I was willing to let go of my limited version of what abundance should look like to me in order to receive something potentially far more greater. And I found a spaciousness that allowed abundance to flow in ways that I couldn't have planned or even predicted. So here's another big one. It's letting go of the need to know how. Okay? Letting go of the need to know how the money would come, how your creation would come. And this opened up possibilities that I couldn't have ever imagined. Remember how I loved to micromanage the universe? Well, for years, I'd been trying to figure out exactly how my manifestation would unfold. I'd visualize specific clients coming into my business. I'd visualize a particular type of projects coming through. I know you've done this as well. I would mentally rehearse winning the lotto, getting an inheritance, something ridiculous like that. And there was always a limitation in this approach because I was trying to manifest from what I could imagine based on my past experiences and my current understanding. I was trying to tell the universe not just what I wanted, but exactly how it should be delivered. Crazy. That is like telling a Uber delivery Eats driver or a food delivery driver, like, okay, I want Rodriguez to deliver it for me, and he has to take this specific route. Like, come on. That's not your job. Your job is to place the order and not micromanage the delivery. How funny are we? It wasn't until I completely surrendered the how, I stopped trying to figure out how the exact path through which abundance would come to me would be, I stopped limiting the universe to the routes I could imagine. And then I finally opened up myself to possibilities beyond my current understanding or imagination. Because you already know it, the quantum field is a field of infinite possibility. But I had been limiting those possibilities to the ones that only I could think of. I've been trying to manifest in the realm of the known and predictable, when the real magic happens in the realm of the unknown and unpredictable. So, this surrender of the how wasn't about becoming passive or not taking action. Let me confirm this for you. It was about taking inspired action without attachment to whether that particular action would be the one that would lead me to my manifestation. Okay? I would take action based on the frequency, the energy, the state of being I would cultivate in meditation, and then take action. It was about following the nudges and synchronicities without needing to know exactly where they were leading. That one takes getting used to. And in that surrender, that letting go of needing to know the exact pathway, the universe was able to bring abundance through channels I would have never thought or planned for. Okay? Another shift came when I learned to trust the field completely, despite having no evidence that anything was working or that nothing was changing. Man, surrender, once you get the hang of this, amazing. But this was perhaps one of the most challenging aspects of surrender. Well, a lot of them are, like as you know. But I'd always been looking for signs that my manifestation practice was working. Okay, that was a habit and an old identity I needed to surrender as well, let go of. I would analyze every interaction for hints of opportunities. I would interpret every coincidence as either confirmation that I was on the right track or evidence that I was doing something wrong. Okay? And there was always this underlying anxiety whenever I did that. Like a constant need of reassurance that something was happening and that my meditation efforts were being noticed. And that manifestation was real and working for me. Okay? So I needed to let go of the checking and start letting the synchronicities come to me and be revealed to me. And so there was always like that energy of, there would be a subtle energy of doubt and impatience that actually makes the journey feel so much more longer than it has to be. And it wasn't until I learned to completely trust the field completely, even when there was no external evidence that anything was changing. Which meant I stopped needing to check for signs or confirmations. I needed to stop checking for results. I needed to stop requiring proof before I could believe. Ooh. Now this isn't blind faith or wishful thinking, but it is a deep embodied trust in the intelligence of the universe. A recognition that the quantum field knows how to organize reality far better than my limited mind ever does or ever can. And so, can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought enough times that your brain and body begin to change to look like the event has already occurred? See, I'd been interpreting that as needing to convince myself that change is happening. What I realized is that it's about genuinely trusting the process so completely that you don't need any convincing whatsoever. So this is deep trust. This trust, despite no evidence, wasn't about pretending, but it was about recognizing that the most significant changes often happen beneath the surface, invisible to our senses, until they suddenly break through into the 3D reality. Oh, now we can see, feel, sense, taste, touch it. Okay? Because in that trust, that complete surrender to the wisdom and the timing of the field, I found a peace that no amount of external confirmation could have ever provided for me. And so, the reason I want to share the exact moment when everything clicked for me. When I surrendered my need to control the manifestation process. Because this was the actual turning point of the entire journey. And I was in meditation one morning and I was so frustrated because I couldn't shut my analytical mind up. When something in me just gave up, but I knew now I know it was surrender, but back then it was just like, I gave up. Not in a defeated way, but like in a releasing way. I stopped trying so damn hard to make manifestation happen or make something happen, and I just allowed myself to be in that moment. I literally whispered, or I heard a whisper saying, I trust you completely, to whatever what was listening. And I felt this expansion in my chest that I can't describe in words. It just feels like, that's what it feels like. It wasn't an emotion I was generating. It was just like a remembering of something that was already there. And I realized that I had been trying to control the entire manifestation process, right from the intention all the way to the final result and everything in between. I'd been trying to act as like the director, producer, and actor and all the side people all at the same time. But in that moment of surrender, I recognized that I don't need to control the process. I don't need to control anything. I just need to ask what I want, intention. I don't need to figure it all out. I don't need to make it happen. I can simply set an intention, take an inspired action, and trust that the universe handles all the details. Because the moment you are trying to make something happen, I'm sorry to say, we are back to cause and effect. We are back to expecting something, back to the Newtonian world, the predictable. But I had been interpreting that as needing to pretend I wasn't trying to make something happen. While secretly I was trying to make something happen. So what I realized is that it's about genuinely releasing the need to make anything happen, like a true surrender of control. And you feel that in your third center. It was about recognizing that there's an intelligence at work that is greater than my limited mind. That this intelligence knows exactly how to bring my intentions into reality if only I would just get out of the way and let it do the work. And in that surrender of control, that complete letting go of needing to figure it all out, lies a sense of freedom and peace under all that chaotic noise. Now, listen carefully. When I surrendered my ego, this was the breakthrough that opened the floodgates. Because for years I had been secretly using manifestation as a way to prove my worth. I wanted to manifest money, not just for the money, but to prove that I was good at this stuff. I was a good manifester. I wanted to be that guy with a great manifestation story. Secretly, I just wanted to be special. And so there was always a subtle competition in this approach because I would compare my results to others and I would feel superior when I had my insights, right? When feelings inferior when others would manifest quickly. So my ego was in the driver's seat. My ego was trying to validate my worth. It's like all those people who don't actually enjoy the gym but go because they can post that selfie afterwards, right? My practice had become more about spiritual identity that I was trying to build than actually having a genuine connection with the field, a genuine connection with myself. And so when I completely surrendered my ego, I let go of needing to be good at manifesting. This was about recognizing my true spirituality, that true spirituality happens when we release the need to be spiritually special. And it was about seeing how my ego was actually creating separation. Well, the exact opposite of the unity consciousness that manifestation flows from. So this was probably the most humbling part of my journey. Realizing that my practices had become, in many ways, just another form of ego gratification. But it was also the most liberating because when I stopped trying to be a good manifester and simply allowed myself to be a channel for the universe, that is when life changes for you. Now, when I learned to allow rather than force the manifestation, everything shifted. Because I had been approaching manifestation as something I needed to make happen through effort, will, bro hustle. There was always this strain in this approach, like a subtle or not so subtle feeling of pushing against resistance or trying to break through something, like a breakthrough a barrier, or needed to overcome this obstacle through effort. And that's exhausting. Even just saying it now, it's exhausting. But I know if you're experiencing that, you feel that subtle exhaustion. But it wasn't until I shifted from forcing to allowing, instead of trying to make manifestation happen, but allowing it to unfold naturally. Instead of pushing for results, I created conditions for results to emerge organically. And it was about recognizing that manifestation is more like growing a garden rather than building a house. Because you don't force a seed to grow, but you create the conditions, like the soil, water, you cultivate it, sunlight, you allow that natural process to unfold. Because the quantum field responds to not what we want, but who we are being. And I'd been interpreting that, who we are being, as something I needed to force myself to become. When I realized that true being happens when we stop forcing and start allowing, our natural state starts to express itself naturally. So this allowing approach changed everything about how I practice meditation and life altogether. Because instead of straining to maintain elevated emotions, I just allow emotions to naturally arise. Instead of forcing myself to visualize specific outcomes, I just allow images and possibilities to emerge organically. Instead of trying to force coherence, I allowed my system to find its natural coherent state. And that is the difference between trying to force yourself to fall asleep versus creating conditions to fall asleep naturally and allow it to happen naturally. And in that allowing, that complete surrender of forcing manifestation to happen, well, I found an effortlessness that made the entire process just not just more effective, but more enjoyable. It's like taking off a heavy backpack. I'm like, oh, like a big sigh of relief. So, what actually happened to the $20,000? Well, I was sitting at a coffee shop one morning, about 3 weeks after that surrender moment during meditation, just enjoying my coffee, watching people walk by, and then my phone buzzed, and I got an email from an old friend that I haven't spoken to in about 2 years. She was now working at a company that needed my exact work that I do, which is sales and marketing back then, and they had a budget. The budget for the project was $12,000. The timing was perfect because I just finished with another client, a previous client, and now I had room, I had space for it. But here's the thing. I never updated my LinkedIn where we usually talked before, or there was no way that she could have seen me or be in her presence or in awareness, okay? A week later, I got a call from my sister and she won at the casino and she gave me $5,000, okay? For all the times I let her borrow money from me. Now, the strangest one of all was I made a small investment in one of my friend's startups about 3 years ago. And it was just $1,000 that I had just, forgotten about. Here's some money and do whatever you want with it. And so in that small investment, he called me up and now that $1,000 was worth $3,000. And I hadn't thought about that money in years. Like, I just wrote it off as not expecting anything from it. But yeah, in about 10 days, $20,000 had flowed into my life from 3 completely different sources, none of which I had been mentally rehearsing, none of which I even had an intention of creating. Okay? And what got me the most was how I felt. In the past, when I'd manifest smaller amounts through effort and will, it'd be like, oh, I earned this. Like, I worked so hard in meditation to make this happen. Let's go. But this felt completely different. This felt like grace. This felt like simply being carried away by a river that knew exactly where it was going. Because the moment you're trying to make something happen, oh, I'm sorry to say, we're back to cause and effect. And for years, I thought that meant I needed to pretend that I was trying to not make it happen while secretly trying. You know what I'm talking about? But what it really means is genuinely releasing the need to make anything happen. And discovering that when you do, things happen more magnificently than we could have orchestrated. The universe doesn't need our help figuring out how to bring our creations to us. Like, it creates galaxies. Your job is not to micromanage the process like I did. It's to get out of the way and let the intelligence that keeps your heart beating without your consciousness, let it handle the details of your creation too. Okay? Here's what I really need you to hear. This isn't about being special or spiritually advanced. It's about surrendering the very idea that you need to be special or advanced for your creation to flow to you. Because it's your natural state. We've just been blocking it with all of our trying, controlling, and forcing, and analyzing and thinking. My creation didn't come because I finally figured out the secret technique. It came when I stopped trying to figure out anything out at all. It came when I surrendered not just the how and when, but the very identity of myself as the person trying to manifest. I am not the manifester. You are not the manifester. We are the witness to what the universe naturally wants to express through us when we get out of our own way. So if you take anything from this video, let it be that your manifestation practice doesn't need any more effort, doesn't need any more techniques, it doesn't need any more striving, but it needs more surrender, more trust, more allowing, more recognition that you are not separate from the abundance that you seek, from the creation that you are trying to create. You are the very field in which all of this exists. And if you would like details about my private mentorship so you can see how this process works and why it's different from everything else out there, link is in the description, and I would love to speak with you. But the ultimate surrender isn't giving up on what you want. It's giving up on the limited ways you've been trying to get it. It's not about becoming passive, but it's about becoming receptive to a wisdom far greater than our planning mind could ever imagine.